Good afternoon. My name is Niko, host of political radio show Mikasa Sukasta. And to catch my political radio show, you can watch on my Facebook Live at Niko D House, or you can listen live on awakeradio.us. Really quick, we have some breaking information, and it kind of aligns with the video that I released earlier about the NBC report. Now, if you all have been following me for a while, then you know that I immediately have suspicion whenever the government, the mainstream media, or establishment party member starts gaslighting information, arbitrary information, especially if it's misinformation, then there had to be something else out there. Luckily, one of my supporters ended up pointing me in the direction of, once again, the truth that should be revealed and should have been revealed. Now, as many of you know, NBC claimed that anonymous CIA agents verified that Putin has been trying to influence the election directly. Now, these were anonymous CIA agents. We have no idea where they're at in the world. They apparently just had access to the top secret information. You know, when you throw out words like that, people who are still asleep, or people who feel comfortable with believing that their government is extremely infallible, and would never, and are always looking out for their best interests, and would never do anything as selfish as lie about Russia. They jump at it. You know, that's what they do. But what they don't do is question, what about this source? Why should these sources remain anonymous? And at the very minimum, you need to have some, at least more corroborating evidence. Or at the very, very minimum, NBC should not have reported it as breaking news, because this was not in fact breaking news. If, like I said before in my last video, if an anonymous source said that Hillary Clinton had committed election fraud from within the Democratic Party, any other media source would be laughed at off of the internet. However, because this is NBC, people ignore it. But what we did get from the dailymail.uk was a legitimate source. Craig Murray, former British ambassador to Uzbekistan, Wikileaks operative, has come out and said that he himself has been one of the people to meet up in DC with a government employee who had authorized access to information, and took it back to have it published on WikiLeaks. He said this account was in September. He even noted on a map where he picked up the information. He did pick it up from a middleman, so it actually wasn't the person who was authorized, but it was the middleman who then delivered it to Murray, and Murray brought it back. Murray was not the only person who has received these emails and these leaks from DC. And he also said, once again, that Russia had no idea about what was going on. Russia was not involved in WikiLeaks at all. Now, this man put his entire biography out there. He tells you who he is. Former British ambassador to Uzbekistan, was critiqued heavily by the foreign ambassador, like government entity of Uzbekistan and Great Britain, however they collaborate. And eventually, because of how much he spoke out against the human rights violations that were going on in Uzbekistan, this man he broke ties with it because he was heavily criticized for calling this stuff out. So this guy is credible, and he's a part of WikiLeaks. Now, what makes this article more interesting, what makes this revelation more interesting, is the fact that this man is in this article, and the Daily Mail publishes this hours before NBC starts gaslighting us about the CIA operatives. Now, I did a post, just very briefly, I did a post earlier on my Facebook page, and I would like to reference it again. The one thing that this Democratic establishment has done, and the mainstream media has done, is anything that is a threat to them, They decrease visibility as much as humanly possible, and if they can't do that, they ridicule it, and to the point where you want to believe that it's completely fake or it's nonsensical. We can look at what they did to Bernie Sanders. The biggest threat to the Democratic establishment and the elite establishment was Bernie Sanders. Blacked them out, then ridiculed them, even to the point of lying. The same thing happened with Jill Stein. Blacked them out, blacked her out, ridicule, and you know the story. They did the same thing with Hillary, for example. Does the same thing with election fraud. Even as Trump is trying to be made the main antagonist of the election fraud narrative, Hillary Clinton still refuses to speak on it because she knows how much she's participated in election fraud as well, and she does not want to aid any animus towards the election integrity movement. And of course, when you're guilty, that's what you do. It's a consistent theme. So why not mention? Because we know that it's Wikileaks who is sending, at least that we know that the Wikileaks is coming off of the website. So why then, or at minimum, is the mainstream media not talking about Julian Assange? Perhaps because, just like the pattern that has been shown by the mainstream media and the Democratic establishment, they don't want you to even know the name of their greatest threat. They don't want you to go look up his videos. They don't want you to look up the fact that they used to support him while he was outing the Republicans, Bush and Cheney years. They don't want you to look up the fact that he's greatly associated with human rights activists, how most of the world supports him. They don't want you to look up the fact that the UN has already exonerated him, has confirmed that these WikiLeaks came from legitimate sources that were authorized to publish them, and that's why he is being currently, in the eyes of the United Nations, held against his will. He is not a criminal. So once again, we have a decrease of visibility, inconsistent stories being told by the mainstream media, inconsistent stories being told by the Obama administration, inconsistent stories being told by the CIA, contradicting the FBI, contradicting things they've said before, contradicting the very narrative itself, neglecting the fact that Gucci for Two released the initial leaks, contradicting the fact that Julian Assange even explains in a video when he addresses Argentina, he explains why that was a catalyst to why his WikiLeaks dropped due to the algorithms of WikiLeaks that he set up. And he also explains that even if he dies, he explained why they will still be released. They don't they once again contradict their own narrative. New York Times says that John Podesta's emails were a result of phishing schemes, and that's how they ended up on WikiLeaks. Phishing schemes? I doubt somebody like who is in charge of a phishing scheme would take John Podesta's emails and just hand them off to Julian Assange. I'm not even sure how they would know how to get in touch with anyone who can hand them off to Julian Assange. Usually people who are phishing are just like, either way, it doesn't make any sense. So once again, we have someone who will put his name, his career, his integrity on the line to say, no, it was not Russia. I know because I am one of the people who collected the leaks and brought them back to be printed or to be published, whereas NBC, shortly after, gaslights us, tells us that CIA, anonymous CIA agents who will not put their name on the line, with no information, comes out and just tells us a blatant lie, saying Putin directly controlled the release of this information, which just simply is not true. So we have two people putting their name and their integrity on the line, who the mainstream media refuses to report about because they do not want you to look it up, versus two anonymous sources being propagated by the mainstream media. I will finish and end with this. It seems like the way they want to confuse us and defeat us is by increasing the visibility of arbitrary misinformation and decreasing the visibility to any threat. Keep that in mind as you're researching this information. Keep in mind and think why they would not ever mention Julian Assange's name. Why Craig Murray wasn't this news? Why wasn't this breaking? This is breaking news. Someone put his name on the line, his integrity, his career, his safety, to say, hey, I was the one who did this. But the mainstream media wants us to assume that that it's just anonymous sources say that Russia and Putin did it. So go on about your business, it's fine. It's not how it works. And Daily Mail is a very reputable source, very credible for you source heads out there. So we have to accept facts. Russia did not do this. Thank you for watching. Please share, subscribe, like, and have a good evening.